The book of Ecclesiastes, verse 12. Moreover, no one knows when their hour will come. As fish are caught in a cruel net, or birds are taken in a snare, so people are trapped by evil times that fall unexpectedly upon them. Okay, so hi everybody. This is Philip from Christian RPG Gamers. Okay, so I don't think this is gonna. Well, again, I'm slowly shifting to like a new season on the channel, but it's not gonna be like dramatically different or anything. But we're gonna focus a little bit more on like adventure and having fun, and in holiness, glorifying God, and just kind of like seeking and finding, and like maybe being a little bit less extreme too. But these things are gonna take time. So background footage is when I was playing this video game called Temtem, basically like a Pokemon, a tag team Pokemon. Okay, so this might be the first of the new series I'm kind of working on, like an Eternal Forever series. But so there's a new movie coming out. Now, I think it comes out this Thursday for Thanksgiving. Although, to tell you the truth, I can't quite remember. It's either Thanksgiving or Christmas. I'll have to look it up. But some point within the next month, there's the Moana 2 is coming out. So in preparation for the new movie coming out, I wanted to talk about the first movie. So this movie's called Moana. So I'll tell you the truth, right? So it's a Disney movie. It does have some singing in it. It does have some songs in it. To tell you the truth, I actually really like this movie. I know that I'm pretty biased. Honestly, almost every single thing on this channel, for what I can really tell, I really only do stuff like reviews, and I talk about stuff that for the most part that I just genuinely really like. So it's a little bit biased sometimes in me, but it's just you get what you get, right? No, it is what it is. And occasionally I just really just don't like something, but most of the time when I make content on the channel, I'm talking about certain games or whatever, or shows or whatever. It's usually I have a pretty strong bias of more favorably than not, which is probably slightly unfair, but we all kind of do what we do. So there's this movie called Moana. I think it was made by Disney. Sometimes they have so many different companies that, like Pixar, and they have animations, and they have all these different studios. They're kind of all the same studio, but so this movie. I think I've seen this movie again. It's hard for me to keep track. Maybe 3 or 4 times in the. I don't know when did this come out. I saw it in the theater. I saw it in a budget theater. I think that budget theater shut down probably a long time ago. But when I was in my 20s, I think I went over. No, but this is back a long time ago, right? I saw it in a budget theater, and it was a pretty good movie, to be real. And then again, I do want to put some Christians' perspectives and spin on it too. But okay. So I'm gonna try to keep this mostly spoiler free, and I'll probably talk about some spoilers. But I'm gonna try to talk about the bigger spoilers maybe towards the ending, because I don't enjoy ruining content for people. So and to be real with somebody, almost all of my content is very spoiler free. It's very light spoiler. So it's even if I told you the spoiler, it's probably still pretty light. So there's gonna be small amounts of spoiler, because obviously you can't talk about a subject without a small amount of talking about the stuff in it. But I'm gonna try to keep some of the major plot, like the plot twist, or the plot what do you call it? All the bigger moments, or things that could be reveals or something. I'm gonna try to minimize those heavily. But there's a very basic plot summary, or some of the basics of what the series is about. So we'll try to talk about it in very vague general terms, because I don't want to ruin someone's experience. So this movie, it takes place in Again, I don't want to just make direct assumptions. It seems a lot like either a combination of one of several places. So either like basically like the Hawaii, there's a. So I mean, I don't know if you live in the United States of America. I mean, I know a lot of people watch my content actually don't live in the United States, but obviously there is also a lot of people who do. So there is a place called one of the states is called it's called Hawaii, or the Hawaii Islands. And this game, not this game. This movie. I'm sorry, I talk about a lot of games, so I don't talk about movies as much. But this movie, it could be reference to Hawaii. It also could be references to I think there's like some of the Philippines. There's like the Philippine. Okay. Whew. Let me just try to calm down for a second. The Philippine islands. There's like a region over in I can't remember which of the Pacific. There's a Pacific island, the Pacific coast. Sorry. Okay. Okay, I'm probably not gonna edit this. Okay, my bad. I just can't speak straight right now. Just too worked up. There's the Atlantic Ocean and there's the Pacific Ocean. And I know there's one major island's kind of off to the side to the. And if you look at the map, it's off to the right. And Hawaii's more off to the left. So there's those two major islands, and there might be another major island area, maybe down to like we got the south, like north. There's the east, the south, maybe the southwestern kind of islands, maybe too. So there's a bunch of different island areas that there's like native people, and there's lots of different tribes and groups of people. So, and this series probably takes place maybe, I don't know, maybe it could have been like 1,000 years from 1,000 years ago, could have been 1,500 years ago. And honestly, this series, it could be old enough that it could easily be, based like even 3, 4, 5,000 potential years into the past. So it has a lot of realistic aspects to it, and it also has, it's obviously it's like Disney-fied, so it has some it has like its own like animation style to it. It has some warm, colorful, bright, it has like, it's like, kind of like painted and colored in very nicely. So it's like, it has its own little like, what's called like fantastical, outlet and perspective on how it was created and made. And obviously there is a lot of songs in this movie, but to tell you the truth, I mean, I'm generally very open to like a Disney movie doing stuff like some songs, because I mean, I can tell you the truth. I mean, again, I know I'm like a grown man, right? But I do sometimes enjoy some like Disney songs or whatever. In my opinion, I'm more open to stuff like Disney songs if they just do a good job. If the songs actually sound good and it's interesting or it's entertaining, or if they make sense within the, if they link him to the actual story, or they're like, if they make sense, I'm usually more open to that. And a lot of these Disney movies, especially the older Disney movie. Now Disney apparently like it's just like a dumpster fire in modern day times. But going from like maybe 2015 and before, a lot of these movies and stuff were pretty good. And then at least they tried hard. And if you try hard, at least you have that at the end of the day. So there's a couple of good. There are some good songs. Like, I mean, they have that song, I think it's called How Far I'll Go, or How Far I'll Get. That song is pretty decent. And there are also some of the songs and some of the aspects to the series, they are very relatable, and they offer some dramatic. They're very dramatic, and they really, I feel like, help influence the story in a very strong light. And like even some of the songs, they have some, they introduce some like tribal aspects to it, and it shows a lot of what's the words I'm looking for? Like, again, it shows a lot of like, shows respect, and it honors their lore in a lot of ways, and it also just makes a lot of sense. So I think that's a net positive. Okay. So again, like the setting is very Hawaiian in a lot of ways. Okay. So So some of the very generic plot to the series is, and again, there's going to be some small spoilers, but I'm not going to try. I'm going to wait till the ending to get some of the major spoilers. But basically, you have the daughter. I mean, I'm pretty sure her name's what called so I can pronounce it, Moana. It's like, the name of the movie, right? But she lives on this little island, and there's her dad and like her grandmother. Again, some of this stuff is a little bit gray. I mean, basically, she has some kind of a family there, and her dad is the leader of this island. Basically, he's like the king, and she grows up there, and she basically wants to become like an adventurer, or become like, she doesn't want to stay on this island, and she believes, for whatever the reasons may or may not be, basically fate or destiny or whatever it might be, basically is compelling her to leave. And there are so, again, I'll get more into like a Christian aspect of this series too, but basically the island is dying, and her dad can't keep the island together anymore as it is, and there's like a little bit of a secret, obviously there's some intrigue and some secrets going on too, and she decides, I'm gonna leave this island. And because she's an adventurer and she's an independent, like, strong-willed woman, and yeah, that's the way it's gonna be, right? How long is this? So she decides, she sets out, and she gets some kind of a raft together, and she's like, I'm gonna travel outside of this island. Oh yeah, and by the way, her dad forbids her from doing it. So he's like, you're not leaving this island. And I'm not going to go too heavy into spoilers right now. There's reasons behind this stuff, but either I'll get into that, or I'll just leave it out, and if you watch the movie, you can find it yourself. Obviously, I do recommend you should probably watch this movie, just because it's a phenomenal movie. But she's like, I'm gonna leave. So she decides one day that she's just gonna go out, and she goes out to the ocean, and she tries to leave. And as she's trying to leave, there's this kind of this barrier of entry and exit, and she tries to get out, and she gets to the point where she's gonna leave there's like an inner coast, there's like an inner waters with the inner coast, and there's like the heavy big waters. And as she's trying to get out, her raft collapses, she suffers terribly. I think her foot gets, again, it's something I haven't watched this movie in a long time, but basically I think her foot gets caught in the water, or there's all these they have these rocks or this ground, and as she's trying to get out, her foot gets caught, and she's drowning to death. And I think her dad comes in, and he jumps into the water. I guess for whatever reason he saw her out there. Some of this stuff is maybe in holiness, maybe like the right hand of God would save her, right? Her dad comes in. He basically breaks her out of the trap. Her foot got in, and he rescues her, and he basically stops her from dying, and he brings her back to the island. So, and he's like, basically he cusses her out, and he's like, basically it's like he doesn't have to explain to her why it's dangerous. Now she knows. So, and again, so I would say, and then obviously, at some point or another, I mean, I don't want to get too heavy into the spoilers. I don't want to ruin it for other people. But at some point or another, basically, fate or destiny calls her, though, and she believes she has to get out to the ocean. And her basically, I think her grandmother has some special magical rock or something, some supernatural powers of the ocean, and she believes that she has some destiny to go out there into the world. So she goes out, and whatever it may or may not be, she gets out to the ocean, and and then her journey begins, right? And then she meets this guy, basically what's called Dwayne Johnson. I mean, I don't and he's like a called a quote unquote like a demigod. And then they go on this major adventure. I mean, I'm gonna get into spoilers here, right? So I just, it's hard for me to talk about this without the spoilers. But basically, they go on this adventure, and they're trying to take this rock back to some kind of an island or a mainland, and it's this big trial and a test and a massive adventure. And again, it's a pretty solid movie, and it's a pretty great overall story. It teaches a lot of life lessons. There's some very interesting plot, and like the characters are pretty well written, and they are somewhat deep at the same time. And one other thing I like about, again, so there's some other things I like about the series too. Yeah, I'm gonna get into spoilers here in a little bit. I don't know if I have anything to signify spoilers really, but other than I'll just kind of tell you, right? But they don't. One thing I do like about this series is there's not a tremendous amount of characters in it. It's like, I understand that, like, you could have like 35 characters, but in this story, there's like really like only like 5 characters in this story. So that's something I think I actually really appreciate, because it's like, you have like, what, I don't, how long is this movie? Like an hour and a half, 2 hours long. You have 5 characters that you have the movie with, and out of those 5 characters, they spend a lot of time on each character. So they have like their main protagonists or the main characters. So I mean, I appreciate that, because like sometimes you don't need to have too many cast members. You just only have to have a couple. And you got their stories you focus on, and like you could focus on everything, or you could just do what you need to do. So, okay. Okay, so now I'm gonna go into more of the spoilers section. So if you have not seen this movie, I don't know, probably just stop the video at this point, or it's up to you, right? I mean, but I'm gonna go probably for the rest of the video is gonna be spoilers. Maybe until the ending it won't be as much. Um, actors just to remind myself some of the cast names. So I was looking some stuff up. Just make sure this is still recording. So this thing here, it said about 2,000 years ago on the fictional island of I probably cannot pronounce this, Matanui. It says the Disney animated film Moana is set on the fictional island of Matuani in the Pacific Ocean, but it is inspired by the real-life island nations of Fiji, Samoa, Tonga, and Tahiti. Let me look here. And like again, some of the characters' names. So there's Moana, and there's also the other character whose name it's called Maui. So I'm pretty sure Maui's in a Hawaiian island. Again, it has a lot of inspiration from a lot of different places. So, and obviously this is a fantasy movie, so it's not technically real, right? But it has inspiration for real world. Okay. It's like I'm always freaking paranoid. This thing's never working at the time. Okay. So, I'm gonna get into spoilers here. I'm probably gonna pause this here. Hopefully it still works. I mean, I gotta get something to eat, but I'm probably gonna finish this here. I'll talk about some of the spoilers. I also want to try to put like a Christian perspective on it too. But I mean, I do appreciate that. Okay. So, actually, this is still working. Okay. So now I'm going to go into some spoilers for this movie. Okay. So basically on the island when she had her dad and, she's trying to get off the island. Basically her grandmother, her grandmother's like, kind of like, it's kind of like, the crazy old woman of the island or whatever. Maybe one day I'll be like the crazy old man. I'm probably the crazy person on the internet as it is. But basically she tells her granddaughter this story about how she has this little pendant and she wears around her neck, and then she goes and she gives it to Moana, and she tells her about how something about like the island and these stories of some kind of like some kind of like supernatural, almost like pagan-like stories of these things that happened on this island, and then eventually when she wants to leave the island, and her dad doesn't want her to leave because originally he used to live out he used to be like an explorer, and he used to go around basically he went around and he traveled all over the places, and he used to be somebody who went out on these rafts, and he was like a full-scale adventurer. And the truth about their people and their tribe is their tribe used to be people who were like kind of like ocean sea nomads in a sense. Like they used to travel all the time. And I think again, his dad her dad basically he tried to cover up the fact that he used to travel a lot. I think he got injured once, and he basically was very afraid, and he established their place where they lived on this island. And he didn't want her to go out because he was basically afraid for himself more than anything. But a lot of this information is hidden until you get further into the story. And then eventually when she's trying to leave, I think her grandmother reveals some of these secrets to her daughter, or her granddaughter. And then eventually her grandmother ends up going out to the ocean, and she dies, and she turns into some kind of a sea creature. Sea creature goes out to the ocean. But she reveals that, that basically they used to travel on the oceans a lot by these big rafts. So, okay, and then this was also after she tried to escape, because she wanted to go on her adventure, because she believed like the sea or the ocean was calling out to her. So what she does is I think she goes out to this little cave that her grandmother was talking about, and they had like 10 different rafts out there or something, or this is where they used to be, and I think her dad basically blocked it all off. And her dad catches her trying to do this, and he's basically very mad, and he takes like a torch or something. I think he burns all the old rafts, because he just does not want her to leave this island, because basically he's now basically afraid of the ocean, because he used to love going out to the ocean, but basically he's afraid now. Oh yeah, and another major plot aspect of the story is the island is dying, and they can't provide and take care of themselves anymore. Their food sources are starting to die out. The fish, the melons, all this stuff, right? They have some grass plants or whatever it might be. And like a lot of this stuff is starting to there's like some kind of disease or decay or death on the island, and they think it's like a curse. And her dad is trying desperately to keep this under control, but to tell you the truth, he can't control it anymore, and it's slowly starting to basically kill the whole island, little bit by little bit. It hasn't taken its full effect, but eventually it will, right? And basically, that people on the island are basically screwed in a lot of ways. But her dad, who's like the king or like the tribal leader, is a very proud and stubborn man, so he doesn't want them to leave. But there is some inevitable truth that eventually something's gonna have to give, because they keep trying to go further and further out, and they're planting these traps and stuff, but it's just not really working out too good. They're getting less and less harvests, and slowly starting to get some death in the food and drink, or especially the food, that is. Obviously there's lots of water, but I mean there is a truth that you do need to like boil the water, or you have to find some kind of fresh water source too. But their island is dying. Now, obviously, later on in the story, and this is more in the spoilers, but it's revealed that there is some kind of a curse that this island, like Tahiki, quote unquote, like goddess or something, she wants this little like island pendant, because this little stone will ultimately like heal her and let her or it's called like a Gaia or something, like basically like a Mother Earth or something. And this Mother Earth, she needs this little stone to be basically like reborn again, kind of like a phoenix or something, and then basically like a volcano or something, how it erupts and then creates brand new Earth again, kind of like recycles and resets every obviously this is a mythological story. It's kind of based on reality on some levels, but it's basically a mythological story. But and then when she gets the stone again, it'll bring new life back, and because the world's dying, because the stone needs to be brought back to this island, because it can't reset the new cycle or something, and so the world's dying because it can't get reset. So this is like Moana's journey, is she has to go take this little pendant stone and travel all the way from one side of the world, just to get out of her little world first, and then she has to go out and basically give this stone back to this like Gaia earth creature mother, quote unquote goddess or something. And that's like the major plot of the story. So, and then another aspect of the story is because it's basically like destiny and fate that Moana is to leave the island, because that's her journey, that's her story, it's her, it's the whole point of the movie, her destiny and fate. And basically her dad torches all these rafts, but Moana goes out there, I think, and like some kind of like magical power or supernatural effect happens, and for whatever reason one of these crafts is like basically like reborn again, or some kind of like, or like maybe it was like I haven't seen the movie in like couple, like maybe like a good year or two at this point, but I do kind of remember it. But I mean, it's hard to remember. It's hard to remember the exact itty bitty little details sometimes. But basically, one of these rafts are remade again, or like some of these branches or something falls off. Because Moana sees this and she's like very distraught. But like destiny and fate is that she's gonna leave this island. So one of these crafts happens to be there. She gathers her supplies. I think she basically secretly goes out. She's gonna defy her father, and she's gonna go out and send this pendant to this Gaia creature. So she goes out there and she gathers a bunch of supplies. I think eventually, it's hard for me to keep track of some of the details. I think she has a mother, or she has some kind of female leaders or people around her. And it's hard for me to keep track of all the little details, but basically they go out and they help her. And some of these people, they end up helping her because they realize it's her journey, her story. And eventually she goes out to her raft. She gets a bunch of her supplies and she's going to take off. And she basically sees her father again. And I think her father is very disappointed and very angry and mad and unhappy. But basically he submits to like some kind of, he believes that, basically he lets her go. She's determined that she's going to get off this island no matter what. So he basically does, he's very hostile, very resistant to letting her leave. But eventually he just kind of just breaks and gives in. And he lets her go. I think he basically gives her permission at the very ending. But it's, it's like, there is a lot of good aspects to this. And then she takes off, and then she goes on her journey. And then some other big major plot summaries points is she meets this, he's called like a quote-unquote like a demigod, and he's supposed to be like the hero of the world. He has some kind of like a fish hook that like lets him, he's basically like a druid. Like if you play Dungeons and Dragons like a druid, he can just transform himself into some kind of a creature. It could be a sea creature. I think it could be an animal creature. I think it also can be a flying creature. He transforms himself into some kind of a being, and it helps him to fight. It's very convenient, like being able to turn to like a bird, like a fish, or like a bear, or whatever it might be. Oh, this video is gonna be done. Good thing I caught it. Okay, so I'm gonna use this footage from when I was playing some Final Fantasy 14. I'm working on making some news backgrounds too, but I can finish using them up. Okay, so yeah, so basically, her dad reluctantly, basically, is a fate and destiny. He basically has no other choice, so he lets his daughter go, and she starts her adventure, and then she meets Maui, and Maui has his own problems, right? It's like he and Moana end up they conflict at first. Maui's like, I think he tries to take her raft because he's stuck on an island. He's stuck in his own little island. He can't get out, and they battle and they have conflict between each other, which is probably pretty healthy. And he initially doesn't trust her very much. Moana is told that she needs this Maui's help, but initially he doesn't want to help her, so it's like this big conflict back and forth. But eventually, after some time, he ends up submitting to Moana, and then they end up working together. And there's this big trial and this big journey going back and forth. So a lot of this is just a giant trial and a test. And then again, like, so some life lessons maybe you could learn from this would be that and like Maui basically, he's a hero, or at least he used to be a hero. It's called like a quote unquote like a demigod or something, like but Maui would go out and he'd do these quests and he'd do these favors, and he was like a hero, almost like an RPG like action guy, hero or something. But he found over the course of time that basically by serving people, he always wanted to earn their praises and earn their favor, try to make them happy. But he found out that, like, no matter how many times you do things for people, no matter how many quests you go on, no matter basically no matter how many quests you go on, no matter how much you do for somebody else, it's never enough to really make. They never really accept it. It's never a quote unquote like good enough for them. So it's like, trying to be like a people pleaser. It leaves you basically empty. It makes you feel empty inside, and it leaves you with nothing. Because no matter how, again, people are just never happy, and they're never satisfied with what they have or what they have access to. And it's a harsh truth in reality, but I think it is true though, that most people are never satisfied no matter how much you do for them. And like, you could be like, like a Twitch streamer or even like a YouTube streamer. Yeah, like, I mean, I've never really gotten too far into it myself. I mean, I make some of these like I just give some of my little opinions on the internet, right? That's pretty much all I really do. And I do try to put a Christian spin on it, but like, no matter how many videos you would make for making walkthroughs on the internet, people are never going to be happy and satisfied. It's never good enough. It's never good enough, and it's just never enough. And no matter how many times you work a job, your boss is just never really going to be happy enough. And you're never happy enough, and you're never satisfied enough. And all the people you serve over the years, they're never satisfied, they're never content, and they're just never happy enough. And this is a really harsh, really true. It's like a really like based, harsh, objective truth in life that Maui ends up having to learn. Because like apparently I think he lives for like, and some of this stuff is a little bit morally gray and subjective, but I think he lives for like hundreds, if not thousands of years. Because he's like a quote unquote like a demigod. So he has like, he's like half human, I don't know, like half Poseidon or half some other powerful supernatural entity. So it obviously is just fantasy, but it's still interesting, right? I mean, he's always trying to make everybody happy, but it's just not ever enough. And to tell you the truth, ain't that about the wisdom and truth of life? It's like you go on these adventures, you always want to do these quests. It's just never enough. And the praises they give you, they just never really satisfy you. You make all this money. They take a little garland and they like put it on the top of your head. Again, like you got jewels and gems and comforts, and people they stand there and they praise you, and they give you honors and favors, and they esteem your name, and it's just like it feels really good initially being like a hero, and then over time, the enjoyment and the pleasure from those things, it's just slowly kind of wears down, and it just doesn't really matter that much. And it's like, sure, again, obviously if you're someone who's really poor or you're a bad spot in life, that stuff sounds really great, right? Like large amounts of money and stuff, but eventually it's like it's not that big of a deal. And like the praises, and then you go out and do some heroic quest for somebody, you want your name to be like, a legend in a book or something, and it's like, it's great, but eventually like the enjoyment and the satisfaction and people's happiness towards it will even slowly go down over time. And it just stops mattering in a lot of ways. And you always have to try to do more and more and more, because you always want to earn their happiness and their favor. But the more you do, it's just slowly just doesn't matter. And it's a harsh reality lesson in life to learn. I would even say maybe there's a little bit of like a biblical story lesson to this too. Now, I don't want to get like super philosophical or like super like, heavy into like theology and stuff, but like in holiness, like the Lord Jesus Christ, he talks about it in the Bible. Like you read like the New Testament, and like, a lot of the stuff he talks about is very, very, very deep, very rich with words, but it's hard to really understand it. And like, I only understand on some levels. Basically, living for like, mankind's praises it's only temporary. And eventually, this side of eternity is going to come to an end. Again, like, obviously, this is something most people know, but few people really truly understand. And I don't think I'm any better. One day our life, our world, our civilization, our society is going to die. It's going to collapse and fall apart, and it's going to die. And this earth will eventually also come to an end. I mean, everything and everyone in it will eventually come to an end also. It is inevitable, it is prophetic, and you can't escape it. No matter what you do or say, it's still going to happen no matter what. I don't know exactly when that's going to come. I don't know all the little details, but it will come to an end eventually. It could be 100,000 years from now. It could be 1,000,000 years from now. This world, this material universe that we know, is going to come to an end. You could say it's probably like Revelation, or whatever you want to come to the conclusion for. But this world's going to come to an end eventually. And everything you do in this temporary world will eventually come to ruin and come to nothing. So this is a really hard thing for most people to accept. And I don't know if it's healthy to dwell on these thoughts in your mind too much, but eventually it will come to an end. And no matter how much greatness you accomplish, eventually it will mean nothing if you give it long enough. So it's a harsh truth, but it is the truth. And the only thing that's going to truly matter at the end of time is eternal things. In holiness, God himself, heaven, the true gospel of Christ. I mean, I would even say things like, again, like, a certain like moral, like virtuous deeds that you did, submission to God's will. You could even say like, the truth. There are a lot of things that are going to be eternal, or that's going to hold value for like indefinitely, or it's just incredibly important. And those things will continue on. Or you could even say like, just treating people good, or like being loving to other people. Those things are going to continue on forever. But all of these temporal things will eventually, give it enough time, that will collapse, die down, break apart, and just disappear. And I believe our souls will continue on forever. So I think Maui learns a very hard life lesson, and that, about these things. And like also he learns a lot of life lessons about the idea of like motivation, and like, like why he should do what he does, and for who he's doing it for. And like Maui has to kind of look in the mirror, and he stayed on this island for a long time. And he has some kind of like tattoos that are like kind of like people or something he kind of talks to or whatever. I mean, maybe he's just going like insane or something, but Maui has to spend a lot of time in reflection. He has to come to terms and peace with his existence. So like he does learn some very hard lessons. And they're not easy to accept, but again, like your motivations are important, and then like who and why you serve is important. In holiness, are you serving God and submitting to his will? Because like that matters, and that's going to have eternal value. And chasing after like, like the pleasures and the fun and the flesh, that's only going to go so far. Like you could even look at Maui as maybe even like a Samson character. I know this series this movie is only like more like a PG series. Like Samson's he plays it pretty fast and loose with his morality. He's hooking up with like different women. He's drinking himself like half to death. He's going out, he's fighting, he's killing. He's doing all sorts of stuff. He plays super fast and loose with his morality, and it ends up basically like Samson lived in the flesh a lot, and ended up kind of like biting him in the rear end a lot too. He's like basically the idea of like even the moral virtue, or the there's wisdom and there's like folly. You read like the book of Proverbs and stuff, and like Maui ends up falling into a lot of traps because of all his selfish desires, and he ends up trapping his life a lot too, which brings him some pretty hard scenarios. Eventually, he's on this island by himself, right? So again, he ends up meeting Moana, and then they go on they got all these trials, and like Maui kind of has to find himself. But eventually he kind of learns who he is or who he's supposed to be. And he ends up like sacrificing himself, or he sacrifices his fish hook. Because his fish hook he has ends up getting cracked. It has a crack on it or something. So it's gonna break down. He's afraid it's gonna be destroyed if he uses it too many times. So, but eventually he ends up deciding that he's gonna stay with Moana and help her finish this quest, even if it means it costs him. Because he believes that the most important thing to him is being this hero, and this fish hook gives him this power, makes him a hero. So he ends up deciding that, you know what, it is very motivational, inspirational. He sacrifices himself, he gives up his fish hook, like he decides he's gonna use his fish hook, and he goes out, he becomes like a real hero, right? Because being a real hero in a lot of ways is basically sacrifice, and he learns that the moral virtue of sacrifice, because he decides he's gonna help Moana on her quest. Instead of, again, he learns, because like Maui is like one of the, he's like a joint protagonist. Like Moana's the main protagonist, but Maui's also kind of a protagonist also. So he sacrifices his opportunity, and he helps Moana finish her quest, and this makes him like a real hero, because he's not doing it for selfish, evil reasons. He's doing it for like more of like a pure, selfless reason. It makes him a true hero. And then eventually, because he's a hero, they complete the quest, and he gets a new fish hook. And I can't remember exactly what happens in the story. I think his fish hook ends up breaking on him, but he ends up he's determined, even if he's gonna die, or if he's gonna lose what he thinks is most valuable, he still helps Moana anyways. And this is a very biblical sense, right? You're gonna do the right thing, no matter the cost. Even if you have to give up everything that matters to you, you're still gonna do the right thing anyways. And this is a very motivational aspect. So, and then again, like they go through their troubles, and then Moana also, and both Maui and Moana are very discouraged many times in the story, but they end up having some kind of faith, and they find their moment, and they get together, and they push through their hardships, and they find some kind of strength, and they also lean on each other too. Both Maui and Moana kind of lean on each other. They both struggle a lot, and they both are kind of like, they're both almost like a little bit depressed at times because they're failing. But they both try to cheer each other up. And because of their companionship, they end up working together. And obviously it's not like Christianity, but like Moana tries to find her strength in like the idea of the ocean, or this pendant, or some kind of faith. She believes there's some kind of power or resource out there in the universe that she doesn't really even know herself, but she still decides to believe and have that faith anyways, which I also do think is very, it is very inspirational. Let's check how long this is. I want to keep this around maybe 45 minutes. How long is this currently? Like 40 minutes? It's fine. If it goes over a little bit, that's okay too. But again, there are some moments that are very cool, and again, they're on this trial and this test, and again, eventually they complete their trial and their test, and then the ocean ends up being healed and restored, and this Gaia ends up being healed, and then the island where their tribal family's at, the disease goes away, but then they come to this realization that the fate and destiny that they've been granted, by the universe or their ocean or their world that they know, because in holiness, God isn't really directly mentioned in the story, but that doesn't mean you can't still find Christian parallels to it. They realize that their fate was to be nomads. They used to be, they believe in honoring their traditions of what they used to be. So they sacrifice this sense of living on this island, trying to live off the island, and instead they live off the ocean, and they go out on these big crafts again, and they start traveling in the ocean again, and they end up being very, and because they end up going on the ocean, they find that this makes them very happy, and they're very healthy, and basically they're restored back to their full true sense of who they're supposed to be. It's a very inspirational, motivational aspects to the story, because who they were supposed to be is they're always supposed to be traveling instead of staying put. Basically being being adventurers, right? And it's very liberating. It's very satisfying. And like again, the story does teach a lot about like perseverance and endurance, and like not giving up. Because like if because like what's the benefit of giving up? You're just gonna fail, right? But sometimes you have to give up on like your pride or like your ego, or the way you used to know something, in order to like to truly become free. Again, there is a lot of like messages of like the gospel and stuff in it, and like learning to like submit to God's will in heaven, and let go of your own personal will. And there's a lot of really interesting aspects to the story. But I mean, again, like it is just a very good movie. Okay. So, I definitely would recommend that if you haven't watched this movie already, you probably should. I mean, it's a pretty good movie. I mean, you can probably find it on Disney Plus, or maybe you can buy it, or you can rent it, or again, it is a solid movie. And Disney did used to make some really good movies. So, and there's a second one coming out. I think I'm pretty sure it's supposed to come out on Thanksgiving. Again, I'm not really entirely sure what the second obviously I haven't seen it yet, but I don't really know what expectations I have for the second movie. It's kind of like you play the video game Horizon Zero Dawn, the first game, then you kind of play the second game, where you have even like you have Elix 1, then you have Elix 2, or a lot of these video games, they're just not. I'm just not sure if it's going to be a great movie or not. I think it's just going to be more of the same movie. I feel like I'm losing my voice here a little bit. But no, I try to clear my throat. I try to clear it off of the screen, but hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully it doesn't go through. But I'm not sure what to fully expect for this new movie. I mean, obviously I've seen the trailer, right? Like, she has like some kind of a younger sister. They're gonna go on some other kind of a journey and adventure. It's the problem with a movie like this is like Moana was a great standalone movie, but I'm just not sure, to be honest, if it really needs a second movie or not. I mean, I'll probably watch it. I mean, I want to watch it in the theater, but the truth is like it's probably a bunch of little kids that are just gonna be yelling and screaming. I don't know how much I'm gonna watch it or not, but we'll see what happens. But it could be a decent movie. I'd probably place my expectations lower for the new movie. I mean, also, Disney's kind of a garbage company. I mean, I'm not trying to be like disparaging, but they used to be a decent company, right? They used to just make movies that were great. Now they just kind of put out whatever. But this new movie could be decent. It also could be really bad. It could be like a 6 out of 10. It could be better too, right? I'll put low expectations for the new movie, and then like maybe it will exceed it, and maybe it will be bad, and maybe it will be good. So I mean, it'll probably be a decent story. It'll probably teach something good, right? But and like Moana, she did complete her first journey, but that doesn't mean that she doesn't have more of a story to tell either. And sometimes it's just the start of her journey, right? So she got off the island, she made a new friend, and like her and Maui are gonna have to work together, and maybe they'll meet a new friend and join like a trio or something. I mean, who's to say? It could be really interesting. Now that they've gotten through the first initial origins of this story, it could be really good. Now, I just don't know though, right? Apparently they're making a live action of this series too, a movie also. So I mean, I don't know how good that's gonna be either, but I mean, who's to say, right? I mean, I'm happy and I'm thankful that I have a good opportunity. It might be good. It might be okay. It's probably somewhere between like okay to good. So, but I mean, it's something interesting and fun to look forward to. So, yeah, like the Moana movie series, Moana, it's a pretty cool series. So, I don't know how often I'm gonna make videos like these or not, but we'll see what happens. All right, so in the comment section below, let me know what your thoughts are. And what Christian themes and aspects did you see in this? I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of stuff out there, or you could say like, what biblical parallels, or just what what kind of like life lessons could you learn from this, or what did you see that I didn't see? If you got this far, all right. Thanks for watching. God is good.